throughout the entire level, you can find children's toys, soccer balls, different things that kids would play with. I think that there's also a possibility that these guys are tied in with some sort of trafficking ring.
Not too far away from the shoreline, you can see two eyes looking back, just watching from a distance.
We'll begin to make our way into the most iconic section of this map, the tunnels. How's it going, everybody? My name's Isaac, and this is Shayne.
Hello, hello.
And welcome back to yet another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole, the show where we go level by level in Ready or Not and dissect all of the weird, kind of eccentric lore that you guys might happen to miss in your own playthrough. And let me just start off by saying this, Shayne, right? If you're a fan of holes, you're in for a treat today. Because in today's episode, we're going to be covering everyone's favorite subterranean hellhole, Rust Belt.
So the basics of today's mission is a joint task force operation between BorderTech, FISA, and SWAT. And before we move forward, BorderTech and FISA are the Ready or Not in-universe version of BorTech and the FBI. Changed for... I don't know. Actually, do we know why it's changed? I think it's for like copyright stuff or just for like, I don't know. Do we know actually?
I think back in the day, I always heard that like if you included the FBI, like the actual FBI within a game and say you like depicted them poorly, that could be sort of like a copyright issue that they go after you for. And knowing Ready or Not, like all of these big name government agencies are never presented in a good light.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that it's just to kind of like stop any potential conflicts with the actual government agency, if I had to guess, you know.
Right. And I believe in a future episode, we will be discussing all the shady stuff that FISA does. But again, that's for a later episode. Regardless.
Subtle foreshadowing.
Foreshadow. Ooh, see, I'm good at my job. Finally. The goal of today's operation is to stop the exfiltration of key Los Locos targets fleeing across an ancient underground tunnel into Tijuana. And again, another quick caveat in case people forgot, even though Los Sueños is based on LA, it's technically where San Diego should be, which is right on the US-Mexico border, which is why this whole operation is occurring. Regardless, Los Locos are fleeing from a crime they probably committed or from various crimes we've been stopping, as we've seen in the previous missions, and it's our job to go stop them before all the important people, you know, disappear.
Now, the map itself for this mission sits in the shadow of the US border. You can see it immediately as soon as you spawn in. And aside from that and a few other rundown farm buildings, all that we can really see is desert. This place is in the middle of nowhere. Now, prior to making our way inside of the main sort of farmhouse building, we'll notice that there are a lot of these other small outbuildings that have been converted into makeshift sleeping quarters. If you work your way through the barn or the storage shed outside, you'll see a bunch of sleeping bags and other personal effects scattered throughout these places. Outside of these buildings, we'll also find ungodly amounts of cash, where we can see just how much money this operation is bringing in. More keen-eyed players might also notice the drone hovering above the property, which is actually the same drone that took the surveillance photos that we can see in our evidence. And you know, I'm not really ashamed to admit that on my playthrough, I immediately just took my shotgun and started shooting at the drone to see if you could shoot it down. And I don't know if you knew this, but you actually can, and you can walk up to it and see its kind of debris lying on the ground, which is kind of a cool touch. But aside from that, inside of the farmhouse, we'll start to find some luggage, some confiscated passports, and even more money. It seems that these coyotes were likely using this final checkpoint as a location to shake down some travelers. At least that's sort of the vibe I got from it, Shayne. I'm not sure if you did too, but seeing all of this money right towards the end sort of indicated to me that they were trying to get more money out of these people.
Oh, without a doubt. We know for a fact Los Locos they're not good guys. And even if they're trying to smuggle across, good people, they're still just going to take advantage of them and fuck them over in some way, shape, or form. And in this case, it seems like they're just extorting them, exponentially. And it doesn't really look good for them, especially when they come over and the first thing is, okay, now let's take more money from you. And here's a passport, or not. Yeah, it is a passport. Here's a passport that we're basically going to own. And I would also put money on they're probably tracking them in some way, shape, or form so they could potentially hold even more over their head.
Right.
It's probably not good for those guys.
I mean, it sort of fits their MO a lot too. I feel like from the last mission, we saw how they were had no qualms with manipulating drug addicts into doing their bidding. So
right.
I was like, these people that are trying to get into the country, that are desperate to get into California in the game, I could see how they could be sort of taken advantage of too. But moving on from that, we can also find a prayer room in the house, which is kind of, I don't want to say unsettling at first, but it definitely takes you by surprise. There's this text all over the walls, and there's actually a statue of the Virgin Mary. And if you translate some of the words that you see on the walls, you'll find that this is actually the traveler's prayer that is written here. It seems that once someone completes their journey through these tunnels, they'll write the names of their friends and family in the hopes that they too will have safe passage. And I guess the idea is here that if they write the names of their loved ones next to this prayer, that they'll have a safe journey. Past all of this, though, we'll begin to make our way into the most iconic section of this map, the tunnels.
Before we even start talking about the tunnels, it is worth mentioning that just kind of like how the last map had a lot of Breaking Bad inspiration, this map is 100% inspired by Sicario, a phenomenal movie directed by Denis Villeneuve. Basic premise for those who haven't seen it yet, basically the FBI is kind of tricked into assisting the CIA with like a domestic dispute at the border. Politics, things get murky, and basically it culminates with a Delta Force raid on one of these tunnels, and it looks just like this. And going through these tunnels, it is one of the best set pieces in the game, I'd argue. One of my favorite missions, to be honest. And again, when you flip down the nods and you just go through slowly, meticulously, it is so fun. I would love to hear your first impression when you tried this out.
Well, okay, so when I first tried out Rust Belt, I didn't read the briefing or anything like that. I just sort of saw the main menu picture. And if I'm not mistaken, it didn't really seem dark. It didn't really seem to indicate too much tunnel action to me. Mm-hmm. So I didn't bring a flashlight and I didn't bring nods. So, I wind up down in these tunnels, pitch black, getting shot at by what looked like shadows off in the distance. And it was a really, really bad time for me, right? And even when you do have a flashlight and you can see the stuff around you, the tunnels here are just a maze, right? I don't know if you had that, but it seemed like every time I thought I was going into a particular room, I wound up exactly opposite of where I thought I was.
Oh, yeah.
So it was confusing and it was really, really scary the first time. And, it's been a minute since I've played this mission in particular. And I'm sure if I go back to it, it's going to be very confusing and very, very scary even now. Right? So
yeah.
I hope your run went a little bit easier than mine, but
dude, it was... I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the spirit of Denis Villeneuve, even though he's not dead. His spirit was inside of me, channeling me, and I had a perfect run the first time I did this mission. Which rarely happens. I went through it, had my nods, had everything planned out perfectly, and somehow I just aced this mission the very first time. Can't say that ever happened again. Repeat playthroughs. Just the first time, it was just perfect. And again, this is probably one of my favorite missions in the whole game. Just the whole vibe, the whole feeling of this mission is so cool. And I mean, we even got a little bit of that in the prior mission at the meth house. It was almost like a taste of what's to come. Because apparently Los Locos love digging holes.
100%, dude. But I think it is, now that you mentioned that, it's kind of important to note the difference in these tunnels, right? Compared to, say, the tunnels in Twisted Nerve that you're talking about. In Rust Belt, it would seem that the tunnels are significantly more well-maintained, right? Mm-hmm. They're better lit. They seem to be a lot less difficult to travel through, even though they're still pretty difficult to travel through.
Right.
But they're more paved, right? It seems like they're easier to follow, whereas like the caves in the last mission were just caves. It was just like, these crackheads dug these tunnels. But to me, this sort of infrastructure here would make sense. It would be in the Los Locos' best interest to make sure that all of their clients safely made it through these tunnels, right? Because they don't want someone to get hurt or killed and hold up this entire part of their operation. Interestingly, though, about halfway down these tunnels, we'll actually begin to see a slight shift in this architecture. Where we were kind of going through these massive pipes and culverts, suddenly it seems as though we are in an old fort or temple. And, I'd really like to hear your thoughts on that.
So, again, this is going to be something we're going to talk about in like a later episode, but there is a background story in this game about the area of Los Sueños. And this tunnel section we're exploring, we will later find out, was dug by the original inhabitants, and they have a bunch of cave paintings, and they have tons of murals all over the walls. And if you look at them, they're kind of weird to look at in the first place, but they do tell a story. They tell a story of a great storm, some kind of natural disaster and waves and something really big happening in the area. And that is not a uncommon thing, and especially with a lot of ancient cultures. This is one of the weirdest things that I find very interesting about history and stuff like that. It feels like, it doesn't even feel like it, pretty much is. Hundreds of cultures around the world have these flood myths or some kind of myth regarding water, and it seems like this culture is no different. From what it seems like, and what we'll later learn in other missions, a culture from around Mesoamerica was pushed up here because of some great storm, and then they settled the area that would become Los Sueños.
And Shayne, you mentioned this sort of this big storm myth, right? On these cave paintings, on these murals. And in my book, I always saw that as sort of a subtle foreshadowing to the arrival of Hurricane Antonio and the home invasion DLC. I'm not sure if that was ever really intended or if that was just kind of a neat coincidence, but I felt like that was something worth mentioning nonetheless. Aside from this, though, we won't find a whole lot else in these tunnels. We can see where the cartel had arranged some more sleeping quarters and even a makeshift minecart system, but aside from that, there isn't a whole lot here. At least, that is until we reach the end of these tunnels. You see, at the end of these tunnels, we'll actually find above a door a phrase that roughly translates to "abandon all hope, ye who enter here," which is a reference to Sicario or Dante's Inferno. We're not really sure if they took the inspiration from fine literature or, really good action movies, but nonetheless, it is here. I just feel the need to mention that in the Dante's Inferno book, this is written above the literal gates to hell. So if you want some, subtle foreshadowing of what to expect, there you have it. Past this sort of warning, though, we'll actually go through another small hallway, but eventually we'll make entry into a massive cavern, complete with an underground river and multiple boats. It seems that the Los Locos were using this river to transport folks underneath of the border. They were either coming in through a river that fed into this cavern, or, there really is no indication of how far this underground river went. Maybe it went all the way to Tijuana.
And perhaps my favorite part about this section is if you look off into the darkness, not too far away from the shoreline, you can see two eyes looking back, just watching from a distance. And what makes this even creepier is that some of the collected evidence at the end of the mission, you can read some text exchange talking about, where they're going, how much cash to bring. But then it ends by saying something that says, "Go straight to water. Don't look if you hear crying children. There are no children in the tunnel." Which... this is just terrifying. I mean, you got these blinking eyes and some creepy ass ghost kids. And on one hand, we could look at this from a realistic perspective, or we could jump the shark and talk about spirits and ghosts, and maybe this further ties into some weird occult stuff going on. Who knows? I'll start with you, Isaac. Do you think this is something tangible, or is it something Lovecraftian?
I mean, while I really do like the idea of it being like a supernatural thing, because I think that is just a really cool vibe that Ready or Not, when they go that route and when they go the really sort of spooky route, I'm a big fan of it. But in terms of like what I actually think is going on here, I'm personally of the belief that the Los Locos might be involved in a child trafficking ring. Throughout the entire level, you can find children's toys, soccer balls, different things that kids would play with, more notably around the sleeping quarter areas that we mentioned, but still there's a lot of stuff there. And while there could be some, entire families moving through these tunnels, I think that there's also a possibility that these guys are tied in with some sort of trafficking ring. Let me rephrase that, not trafficking in general, but like trafficking against people's will, right? And I think that might be something that's going on here. And maybe the Los Locos are worried that if somebody heard children crying, maybe they wouldn't be keen to, go with these guys, to go with these gang members and cartel members. And that'd be bad for business. So perhaps that's something that the Los Locos are doing. Maybe they're trying to like steer people into thinking it's part of this supernatural weird phenomenon, when in reality, it's just, no, the Los Locos are horrible people trafficking these kids underground. But that's just my take. I would love to hear I know you're about to say something crazy. I can just feel it in my bones. And I'm excited for it. Let's hear it.
It's El Cucuy. That's who it is. They are described as a hairy, red-eyed creature with large ears that live in caves and hills, and they listen for misbehaving children and then take them back to their cave to eat them. El Cucuy, aka the Boogeyman, that's what it is, and you can't prove me wrong because you can't prove it did not exist. So checkmate.
I don't think that's how that works, but I'll allow it.
Man, can you imagine? Let me just say it. Can you imagine you're playing through the mission and everything is normal, but like there's like, let's say like a 2% chance each time you play the mission, you run into the goddamn boogeyman in the cave and it's like a monster. It's a very rare occurrence. I would love that. It's like, oh shit.
Just one of my favorite things in general in games are when they stay super duper grounded, but then there's like that one time, that one encounter where they do some like really spooky, creepy, supernatural shit. And if Ready or Not did that, dude, it would mess people up so bad. Holy crap.
I'm sitting here waiting for the El Cucuy DLC, man. That's...
The El Cucuy DLC. Make it happen. It's coming. Make it happen, Void. God. Aside from all of that craziness, though, there are also some more tangible bits of evidence that we can find after we complete the mission. Most notably to me, there were some sort of, I guess you just call them documents or spreadsheets that the cartel had made that sort of document all of the different locations and shifts of different Border Patrol agents. And this, to me, likely seems to be in an effort to either steer clear of these patrols or to eliminate them altogether. If you actually look closely at this evidence, you'll see where some of the Border Patrol agents have been crossed out, indicating that they've either been bribed or kidnapped or most likely killed, right? I feel like it's the Los Locos MO to just, if you're a problem for them, they're just going to get rid of you, right? That's what they've done the entire game. That seems to be what's going on here. And, you know, I just found it kind of funny looking back on it that the cartel like printed out a spreadsheet and it has like a little graph at the bottom and all this different stuff. I was like, oh, that's kind of, you know, cute, I guess. And then you see the names crossed off on the front of it and you're like, oh, that's not good. But I mean, in terms of evidence, I think that just about really does it. These guys were smuggling in people and product, potentially children, through this tunnel. And if we hadn't got there, this operation would continue. But seeing as they're so fond of tunnels, Shayne, I don't know if you get the same vibe, but I feel like the Los Locos are going to be able to bounce back from this pretty easily. We've seen that they had tunnels in Twisted Nerve. They've got tunnels in this mission. I think more than likely they've probably got tunnels that we don't know about somewhere else along the border.
Oh, 100%. This isn't something that just collapses the organization. It's just like a minor setback. This was probably like the biggest, smuggling den they had, but they probably have tons of other avenues and routes to get back across the border or to maintain their organization somehow. So even though we stopped one operation, I mean, it's like the Hydra, right? You cut off one head, two more grow back.
Exactly. But yeah, that honestly just about does it. The Los Locos were smuggling people, product, and God knows what else through these tunnels. But luckily, we were able to bring it to an end. At least for now. Because as we'll come to find out in our next episode, the Los Locos are nowhere close to finishing their business in Los Sueños. But until then, my name was Isaac Morgan, and you can find me on YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram under the same name.
And you can find me on YouTube at Shayne Please Shut Up, or Shayne No One Cares, or on Instagram at Shayne the Doyle. But until next time, everyone, remember, if you find a mysterious hole, you never know. El Cucuy might be in there.
He just might.
Dun dun.
Good night, everybody.